Welcome to my live workshop on how to break free from toxic beliefs once and for all. There is a Q&A at the end of the workshop, but in the meanwhile, it's just better if you participate and you follow along, and then if you have any questions, you can keep them for the end. So this is what we're going to cover in this in the workshop. So first of all, we're going to set an intention, and you're going to pick one thing, the one reason why you're over here. And in the first part, we are going to talk about toxic beliefs, a little bit of theory and practice as well, a very insightful exercise. In the second part, we are going to talk about all the parts that make you, and once again with practice and a little bit of theory. In the third part, I'll talk about the happiness funnel and the 5 elements that you need to be aware of to shape a life that tastes just right. In the first part, I will introduce my superpower, and that's the way in which I can help you in spotting and outsmarting your toxic beliefs. And in the end, there's going to be a Q&A. And if you stay until the end, you can get my presentation in PDF. So I will continue. So every once in a while, I'm going to check Facebook. So yeah, to see if anything is happening over there. So don't pay attention to that. So intention is key. So I would like you to set your intention for the workshop. Whatever comes to your mind, whatever is the core reason why you're here and why you are watching this workshop. And I would like to add to that to have the intention of approaching what you're gonna hear and the exercises you're gonna do in a curious way and with an open mind. Pick one thing. I think that if you are here, there is already a good reason. There is already something that is bothering you, or there is something that you feel that it's not as good as you could be. So I would like you to pick one thing, maybe a goal that you cannot achieve, or a dream that you cannot dare imagine, or a fear that it seems like you had forever and you really cannot get rid of it, or maybe a feeling that really clenches your stomach and makes everything feel tainted and not so nice. Then I'm going to share a little bit about who I am. I'm Valentina. I am a neuroscience geek and a change expert. I was an anxiety and a binging queen for most of my life, and I'm now purpose-driven. I went through several years of transformation, of a journey that felt very empowering and energizing, and that's why it became just a natural consequence to want to teach how to craft a life that tastes like chocolate covered rainbows to as many people as I can. So why toxic beliefs? Because they are pretty much at the roots of the way in which we behave, at the roots of what we think, of our attitudes, and pretty much anything that goes on in our life. It is driven by beliefs. Some beliefs are good, others not so much, and we're gonna take care exactly of those ones. By the end of this workshop, you will understand some of your behaviors and thoughts that were a mystery to you, or maybe were not a mystery, but I'm sure that you're gonna find some very useful insights. You will have a higher awareness of who you are, and why. And in my experience, awareness is that one thing that is at the roots of your ability to be connected to who you are, but also to really understand what is happening around you, in the people in front of you. And that provides you a choice, because when there is understanding inside and outside, then you have the freedom to take a choice that really brings you where you want to go and not somewhere else. By the end of the workshop, you will also have learned powerful techniques to shape a life that is just right for you. So in the first part, we are gonna talk about toxic beliefs. So as I said before, we have many beliefs, actually. Probably they are really countless, because it's something that we start to do automatically since we are little children. Many of these beliefs are harmless, or they're actually really good in the sense that they help us to avoid information overwhelm. Imagine if you had to relearn every single time that when you go out, when it's raining without an umbrella, you're gonna get soaked. Well, this is one of many experiences that you just simply learn to associate with a certain outcome. Sometimes you need many repetitions to learn that. Other times, one repetition is enough, and yeah, you know about it, and you're not going to do that again. A toxic belief is learned exactly in the same way. The main difference is that it is in the way of a joyful and meaningful life. I usually say that it's like an elephant in the room because it's hiding in plain sight, but it's running the show of your life from the safe place of your hidden subconscious. It's a very special elephant. It's not one of those cute little elephants that you see at the zoo. It's a special elephant because you don't perceive it as such. It's an elephant that is occupying the living room of your mind since you were a little child. So you grew attached to it. It's always been there. So it doesn't feel so weird that there is an elephant in there. The problem with it, it's an elephant. So it poops a lot, and all that poop with years and years and years and years just got piled up in the living room of your mind. And it's not surprising that you may feel sometimes confused, that you may feel that you cannot find clarity, that your mind is simply cluttered, because it is. And at the same time, yeah, you don't really know how many elephants you have in your mind. It may be one. In my case, there were many of them. So yeah, it becomes really tight really fast. So that's why we want to spot these toxic beliefs. We don't necessarily need to understand where they come from, but the moment we get awareness about what toxic beliefs we have, that's when we can actually outsmart them and move on with our life. So here are some examples of toxic beliefs. Yeah, I will never find true love. Life sucks, period. There's never enough time, which honestly, in modern times, it's not so much a belief as a reality. I could never be successful, or simply enough, I suck in mathematics. There is a set of predetermined rules that we come equipped when we're born, because they're common to our being human. There are ways in which we perceive the world, we perceive ourselves, and ways in which we behave, we interact. And one of these equipments is called the self-fulfilling prophecy, and then the name I really love very much. It's very fitting, and it explains that that phenomenon in which when you deeply believe something to be true, your mind is gonna validate that piece information. Even when you are surrounded by obvious contradiction, your brain is still going to spot that one thing, that one element that is confirming exactly what you believe. And that's the reason why toxic beliefs are so powerful. Once you have it, and you have it basically since when you're a little child, since you can remember, it just shapes your life in a certain way. And that's not necessarily the best way possible. So yeah, I would like to do this exercise with you. So you can grab your pen, paper, whatever you prepared. It's fill the blanks sentences. Don't think too much about it, just write the first thing that comes to mind, and we're gonna discuss the outcome right after. So here they are. The worst thing about me is that I am whatever. If whatever weren't such a problem for me, I would. So for example, if ice skating weren't such a problem for me, I would join the circus and travel around the world. It's a very fitting example. If I didn't have, I would. If I didn't have a fear of heights, I would climb the Kilimanjaro. Yeah. So I leave you one more moment to write down your sentences. So what happened there? So look at what you wrote. I would like you to reflect on how you feel about the words, sentences, ideas, and beliefs that came out of those three sentences. Are you feeling surprised, unimpressed, shocked, whatever? Curious? You're done with this shit? Interested? So would you like to check the words that fit how you feel the most, and add one or two more words that that fit the way in which you're feeling right now? And then I would like you to ask yourself if maybe there is another part of you that feels a little different. Ask yourself exactly these words to yourself. Is there a part of me that feels a little different than the other one? Well, if so, I would like you to repeat the same exercise and write a couple of words, or check the ones that are here that reflect more closely the way in which you're feeling. Now take a moment and write it all down. And yeah, if you feel brave and comfortable, you can also share it in the chat. So I'm gonna continue now with a little bit of theory. So this is the not so serious evolution of identity. It's really not very serious, but it gives you a very high level idea of how things evolve during your life. So when you're born, you are a little baby, and actually you don't really have an understanding of me. When you're born, you perceive yourself as being a part of mommy. All there is mommy. That's why when mommy steps away, there's a lot of crying. So from 0 to 1, you are not really. You're just mommy, and you perceive yourself as part of mommy. And then from 1 to 2 years old, you are maybe. You're still very much mommy, but at the same time, you start to perceive mostly I want, I wish, I need. And that's where you start to have a perception of you as an individual. And then between 2 and 6, there is a quest to understanding who you are. And it is done in different ways. And these ways have an evolutionary reason to be. The main one being safety. Little children have one need above every other need, and that's the one of feeling safe. Because in former times, when you didn't feel safe, you were pretty much dead. And we still function with that same program, even if we don't live anymore in a time in which we can be eaten alive by wild animals or freeze to death if we get lost in the woods. Our brains still work like that. And so what happens is that to understand what are the best ways to be safe in the community we live in, we look up at the people who are close to us, and we look at our environment to understand what's the best way to fit in. Because only when you fit in your tribe, you are sure to survive. And unfortunately, in modern times, there are no tribes, and the environment, well, it's different depending on where you look, and you don't have a whole community to take inspiration from, to model, to look up at. You mostly have your parents and sometimes your grandparents, and that's pretty much it. And that's the reason why in modern times, more than ever, there is a tendency to develop toxic beliefs. Because when we look up at our parents, we are basically asking them to do the job of a full tribe, which is very, 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 very difficult. So the backbone of your personality is pretty much formed by age 6. That means that in a time in which you have very little awareness of yourself and the world surrounding you, in which you have very little understanding of a lot of things, it is when who you are gets shaped. Your beliefs, good and bad, are formed in this age. They're not visible to you. All the elephants get in place at this time, most of them at least. And from there, well, they just kind of go on in autopilot. So from 6 to I don't know how many years old, there is the phase of the I am. It's like you have figured out finally who you are. And you live through life through the lenses of this understanding that you got as a child. And then I don't know how many years later, quite a few for me, you just raise your head and say, hey, wait a minute, but who am I really? And then there is you now. Now, I don't know at which point in this timeline you are. What I know is that I was about 34 when I really got fed up with the perception I had of myself and decided to do something about it. So that I already explained, the way in which as children we observe, believe, model, and repeat what we see. We basically learn what is possible and what is impossible. If our parents or a grandparent keep repeating that life is unfair or life is tough, we are simply going to decide and accept that life is hard and life is tough. And therefore we are gonna validate this belief in our daily life, because now, let's be honest, there are plenty of occasions in which we can validate that assumption that life is tough, because yeah, of course it is. It is very much different if you grow up with someone who tells you that life is tough and you do the best you can, or life is tough and that's the beauty of it. You need to navigate through the seas of life. So that's when you decide what is possible and what is impossible for you as a person, as an individual. Unfortunately, you don't have any awareness about this process that happens in your subconscious, hidden. And you decide what are your immutable limits, the things that you could do and the things that there's no way that you could ever do. And those becomes toxic beliefs with time. You live by it ever since, day after day, without noticing it. So it's one of those elephants in the room. The thing is how many elephants are there and how much poop do they produce, because yeah, I'm sure you got the image of that. So let's move to the second part, all the parts that make you, you. So I know this image is very creepy and you cannot unsee it. I'm sorry about that, but it's really, really, really accurate. It shows the way in which we develop at a much more consciousness level. So the palm of the hand is pretty much the self. The self is that part of you that contains them all. It's like a container. It is there from day one, and it is not affected by toxic beliefs. It is not affected by a lot of the things that we perceive in our life. The self is a little bit like our core. It contains our values, and it has the ability to feel love. It has the ability to feel acceptance, and it has the ability to heal. What happens is that the self, which is a very basic program, gets crushed underneath all the layers that come afterwards, all the experiences, toxic beliefs, thoughts, attitudes, and modeling that we do. And what originates are fragments or parts that have different needs. They have different purposes in life even. They have different roles inside of our life. And here you can see a very simplified, but it's actually very accurate representation of what are the parts that compose most people, at least most people who don't feel fully alive and who have toxic beliefs hidden in their subconscious. There is an inner child whom at some point felt very lonely, or it felt rejected, or it felt wrong, or it felt that it was not enough. When this happens, with time, actually not much time, a protector shapes itself. When the inner child feels rejected or lonely or unsafe, then the feelings that originate are very overwhelming for the mind of a little child. And therefore, the mind creates a part which protects the whole, the child, from these overwhelming feelings. And if you are wondering, no, the protector doesn't protect in healthy ways. Usually the protector protects by disconnecting the child from the feelings, because only that is the way in which the child can stop feeling overwhelmed. So it creates a barrier between the mind and the feelings, so that the mind can keep going, it can stay functional, and it can behave accordingly to expectation. And with time, when you grow up, this protector usually needs to find more and more creative ways to keep you in avoidance of this black hole that is growing inside of you, this disconnection and this emptiness. And it does so by bringing distractions into your life, like procrastination. It brings self-sabotaging. It brings to binging, any kind of binging really, like food cravings, binging on TV series, social media, anything that kind of crosses that fine line between, oh, I'm loving this, and oh, I cannot really do anything but this, and it feels like shit. So that's the fine line. And then there is an explorer. And some people, the explorer gets forgotten while growing up, but not really, because the explorer is that part that keeps standing up and suggesting that maybe there is more to life, that yes, of course you want more, because you want to discover and explore, and you're curious by nature. Your human brain is the quintessence of curiosity. And then you have another part, which is the advisor, and you may know with the word of inner voice. The advisor is simply enough that voice that talks a lot, and often enough it really doesn't say anything valuable, but we keep listening over and over again, and anyway we listen. And the observer is kind of a superpower that we all have, but we just don't use very often. It is your aha moment. It's when maybe you are entangled in these thoughts that are coming from your inner voice, which are toxic in nature. And then for a moment, you are actually aware of it. And the observer kicks in and says, aha, okay, what am I thinking? This is ridiculous. Why am I thinking this? This is your observer, which is popping up and say, hey, this is making no sense. Please quit the nonsense. Stop doing that. It's not bringing us anywhere. So these are all the parts that are yours. And we are just never trained to communicate with these parts. We are not used to communicate with ourselves, basically. We have a very deep disconnection that prevents us from perceiving all these parts clearly enough. And the moment you start perceiving them clearly enough, you can start the most meaningful conversations of all, because this is a way to directly access your subconscious. And honestly, of all the other ways that I tried, that I experienced in my life, this is the only way that allows to access the subconscious in a very intuitive way. So without having to learn hours and hours of neuroscience theory, but just lets you tune in what you're feeling and what you're thinking. So does that make any sense? If you could tell me if that make any sense, I would go on, and we can have an exercise on tuning in, because it's really powerful, and it's a skill that it's really useful for life. So this way of perceiving your inner world is like a family. It's a way in which we perceive ourselves and all the parts that make you as a family. So in one way, it's beautiful, right? You have all family members in there, but at the same time, some are easy, some are not so easy, right? Some are easy to understand and some are really not so easy to understand and they create a lot of trouble. So, but yeah, let's try with the exercise and let's see what happens. So follow my voice and let's see where this inner exploration brings you. If you can close your eyes and maybe you are in a quiet spot, I know I'm asking a lot, then it would be best. Otherwise, just try to follow, to listen very intensely as much as you can. It's always good to take a couple of deep breaths to just, breathe out the day. It's a good way to lighten yourself. And then I just would like you to bring your attention to the sentences that I'm gonna say and to repeat them internally, to repeat them as if you were speaking to your parts. So first of all, I would like you to acknowledge that there are some parts of you. I know it may feel silly at the very beginning, but yeah, just cope with it and very soon it will not feel silly anymore, I promise. Hey there, hi everyone. I'm taking the chance to see what happens next with curiosity, to meet all of you and start a conversation because I would really like to meet all of you. This is something new for me. And I want you to know that there is room for everyone. I would also like to thank you for everything you've done for me. And thank you for being there. Now I know that you're there and I want to be there for you as well. I want to get to know you better. And I would really like for you to show yourself if you feel like that. I would like you to, now I am talking to you again, I would like you to notice any sensations or feelings or thoughts that pop up in your head. And then I would like you to ask internally, who needs my attention? So now you are consciously asking to your parts if any of them needs your attention right now. And then just pay attention and listen. Do you feel pulled somewhere? Are there any thoughts? Maybe a thought that is just whispered, or maybe a thought that is actually very, very loud, or maybe you feel pulled away from some thoughts or some feelings or some sensation. Whatever is going on, choose where to focus. If you want to focus on a word that just came up to your mind or a sentence, or if you want to focus on a feeling or a sensation. And now I would like you to focus on this and visualize it. Where is it? Where is it located? Is it in, on, or around your body? Can you see this part? Does it look like anything you know? Is it a person, or is it a younger version of you? Or maybe it is an object, who knows? And can you feel this part? Is it talking to you? Can you sense it in some other way? And now I would like you to ask this part How old are you? And how old does this part think you are? How does this part feel about you being this old and looking the way you do? So now it's time to thank you and say goodbye. So I would like you to repeat to your part and to yourself. Thank you for showing yourself to me. I'm glad that we could meet and I'd love to talk more. Would that be okay? Now I need to go, but I will be back. So I will be talking to you soon. And I would also like you to tell to your other parts that you will be happy to talk with any other part who decides to come out and show themselves, because from now on, you're going to be there for them. So, did anyone manage to do this exercise, even if I have absolutely no idea where you are, what you're doing, and if you are having all your attention on the workshop or no? Okay, okay, good. So I'm gonna continue with a little bit of theory about this model. So it's very intuitive. It just requires a curious mind, a kind approach, and a grateful vibe. And it's easy because it is as easy as talking with a friend or a parent or a little child or your pet, whatever that is. And it's also a little tricky because it's family after all. There's drama hidden somewhere, and some parts have limited awareness. They are stuck in the past, and it sometimes takes a little while to understand where in the past they're stuck. And it sometimes takes a little while to understand what is your perception of you. Sometimes they are completely unaware of the fact that you have grown up, and it's actually the most important part to be able to reconnect to the part itself and to yourself. So I'm now gonna move to the part 3, which is the happiness funnel, and some brain hacks that you can use in your daily life to deal with your toxic beliefs and outsmart them in the short term. One that that I like very much is using the observer power. Whenever you feel overwhelmed by a thought or feeling, you can breathe deeply a few times and thank the part that is conveying the thoughts and feeling for its protection. You can just really say, thank you very much. I am aware that you're trying to protect me. And by doing this, you are acknowledging it for what it is, an attempt of protection, usually rooted in a fear that is not actual anymore, that is just keeping you from doing what you actually want to do in your life. So when you have the awareness to acknowledge it, you can stay with the feeling and distance yourself from the thought and choose an action, as little as it is, to move on from that temporary discomfort. If you sink into it, oh, it's gonna pull you down, and you really don't want that. Just do something. Do the laundry, go to unload the dishwasher, do some gardening, whatever, do something practical. And believe me, by the time you are done, you will be in a much better mental position to keep going with your life. The second brain hack is to ask this question. I know it may seem silly, but really try to use it in your real life and you will see that it's really amazing. The question is, if it was easy, how would it look like? It works because your mind is an amazing machine. It's really, really, really wondrous. And it has the ability to show you that there is a way. And it's actually easy enough to follow. Because when you ask your mind, solve this for me, if it was easy, you're already giving the parameter that it needs to find an easy solution, while most probably what you do in your daily life is that you have a toxic belief about, I don't know, about either life being really hard or about you being inadequate. Therefore, what your mind creates are solutions that are extremely hard, if not impossible. When you ask your mind to generate an easy solution, your mind is going to comply. And then it's really just about you choosing to go the easy way that you know exists without getting stuck, without letting negative feelings, without letting toxic thoughts stop you, because you know it's easy and your mind just proved it to you. And bottom line, it's about awareness. It's any kind of change is rooted in awareness. You can train it as a muscle. You can teach it as a child. You can love it as your closest friend. If you just take the time to explore the things that give you the most joy, and you choose the ones that can be done in 5 to 10 minutes or 20 minutes or even more if you actually have the time, then you grab your calendar right away and you add 3 of these sessions in your week. Believe me, you are going to feel much better with yourself. And the last method is called the la 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 method. I actually called it like that, but I don't know how it's called. You just grab the toxic thought that is bothering you in that specific moment. And you just find a way to come up with one word that defines it. I don't know, if you are feeling inadequate or wrong, you can just take the word wrong as a summary of it. And now you start repeating the word as fast as you can for a good 3 to 5 minutes. I know this really feels stupid. I know because I did it. But believe me, it's power. The power of the toxic thought that was keeping you stuck or in a dreadful feeling will decrease significantly. And if you keep doing this exercise, it's going to decrease more and more. So it's very much worth trying it. At the same time, you will see that the meaning of the word will change after you do that for 5 minutes. And when the toxic thought comes up to your mind, it's not uncommon that instead of feeling dreadful, you will actually smile and laugh at yourself, which is something really beautiful. So this is about the 5 elements that you need to be aware of in order to shape a life that is just right. And the U factor is what we discussed at the very beginning, but not quite. It's you, but you in the way you learn, in the way your brain processes information, because we're not all the same. Some people are very visual and can learn things better by seeing them in a drawing, or actually by drawing things themselves. Other people are very analytical and they need to crunch numbers in order to remember things. So the way in which you learn things, the way in which you process information is something that must be taken into consideration when you want to change something in your life, when you want to rewire your brain in one way or the other. The Beliefs Show is pretty much what I introduced to you in this workshop. And it's very powerful, and it is underlying everything else. Unless you bring out into the open what are your toxic beliefs and what is keeping you in a life that doesn't satisfy you completely, then you will not be able to feel fully connected to your heart-feeling values, to your courageous purpose in life. You will not be able to think with clarity. You will not be able to have a life plan that brings you exactly where you want to go, because you will just simply keep self-sabotaging yourself, and you will keep procrastinating, and you will just buy into the toxic thoughts that you have lived by until today. So this is what I decided to dedicate my life to, is to help people break free of their toxic beliefs so that they can feel freaking alive and shape a life that is just right. And that's what my 2 weeks detox program does. It's very short, but it's very intense, believe me. And this program is meant to spot and outsmart your toxic beliefs so that you can break free of your toxic thoughts, patterns, and attitudes. And take away a ton of elephant poop in the meanwhile, because that's what we really care about, right? You can also especially reach a higher awareness so that you get the clarity that you need to make better choices and to keep all the second guesses and self-doubting and so on. And you can act towards the life that you want and you deserve instead of just thinking about doing it. You will identify it and communicate with all your parts, because that's just the root of everything that matters. Being able to communicate within yourself and be able to reconnect with yourself so that you can rediscover that self-love, that compassion, that drive and that purpose that will transform the way in which you're living right now into something pretty awesome. So yeah, it's time to say goodbye to second guessing. It's time to learn to deal with negative emotions. It's time to say goodbye to elephant poop, to reconnect to yourself and to feel fully alive. So as part of the detox program, there are 3 different bonuses. The first 2 are live workshops, a little bit like these ones, but without any promotion. So they are 2 hours long, and we really go deep into the topics of heart-feeling values and life purpose, so that you basically have all the tools, all the understanding that you need to shape a life that not just tastes right, but that tastes like chocolate covered rainbows. That, you know, that's my line. And the third bonus is joining my exclusive Facebook group, because that is where the magic happens, and it's a place where you belong in the totality of the person of that you are, with your quirks and everything else, and with live workshops and random love notes from me and everything that you need to go from here to a better life. So for the first people who join, I'm making quite a discount of $100 in exchange for feedback and a testimonial, because I think that giving is the nicest thing that there is. So there you are. You are bribed, but in a very transparent and kind way. If you're not sure that we are a match, well, that's absolutely understandable. You can set up a free call with me in which we can talk it through. We can understand if we are a match, if we could work together to reach your goals.